We use the PowerPoint format just so that we can remember what it is we're delivering in a systematic fashion and not just have open conversation. And also that you can see a visual, because many people are more visual than they are auditory. So we use both for, and then it will be, yes, there will be a copy of the PowerPoint available and the recording available. Okay, so again, please mute. You can use the chat box to write in questions, but as you've probably learned your entire life in learning settings, that we'll probably give us a chance to address the issues before peppering the questions, because you might get your question answered as we present, and certainly put in questions towards the end when we can answer them. It is recording and closed captioning is available. And here's our little laugh for the day. Counting to 10 only makes it premeditated. Maybe that kind of sums up some of the frustration that most people are feeling right about now. Okay, next. Alicia's going to take this one. Before we get started on that, we want to thank you for taking your time. We need your feedback. We want to know what you're thinking, but we need to give you some information first, and we'll circle back towards the end and answer as many questions as time will allow. Thanks a lot. Alicia?
Hi, everyone. Thank you. And welcome. We wanted to get out a few reminders because there's a lot going on, as Patty just alluded to. October 6th, the waiver renewal comments are due, and we would love for you to email your comments to the email address shown on the PowerPoint here. SDAN comments will be shared to the members. We're hoping October 4th, and we're also going to post it on our website. It does appear as though the more the merrier in terms of making comments. So feel free to make your own. Feel free to use ours, but they are taken with more gravity if we all actually send them in. So on November 15th, as you guys probably remember, participants must actively choose a fiscal management and counseling service, the FMCS, or one will be chosen for you. So there are DDA fairs, info fairs in October. There's a link here where you can register. If you need more information, you can call each one of the three. I believe the deadline for October 1st startup is behind us. So the startup would be in January 1 going forward. Just wanted to remind everybody that in July of this year, there was a rate change. So if you need additional funds in order to pay for the FMCS for other reasons, speak to your support broker, your CCS, to either confirm that you got the increase or to ask for one. Portions of Appendix K have been extended to January 31st, but overtime for family of staff, as I understand it, ends September 30th. You can read the DDA's email on this link, and it will tell you, it gives a pretty accurate charting of the dates that each Appendix K portion ends. And then lastly, there's been a lot of uproar and confusion about a new requirement the FMCSs are having for, as I understand it, both new and existing staff and support brokers. They have extended the deadline to December 1st. Still have a question about if we're starting FMCSs on January, if the December 1st deadline holds. But I think it would be smart for us all to plan to get a fingerprinting done for us, for staff, support brokers, before the December 1st deadline, and or make your feelings known to the DDA that you, whatever it is you would want to advocate for. So I think that kind of, we can talk more about any of these things later, but I think we'll move on. I think, Carol, you are starting off with our waiver renewal information.
Basically, you've heard in the reminders that this is your chance to be heard This is all of our chance to be heard, to make changes. A lot of things that were in the Self-Direction Act are there, not necessarily as we envisioned, which we'll talk about later in this presentation. What we did learn is that the more comments, like Alicia said, that you submit, that are submitted by individual people, the better. So it doesn't help if we say 50 people are agreeing with us. We need all 50 people to send that email. But you can also read our comments and pick out the things that are most important to you. Later on, we would like you, or we're going to ask you to put what your concerns are in the chat so that it can help address our comments when we make them. Next slide, please. So one of the things that was in the Self-Direction Act is the day-to-day administrative position, which is to help with sustainability. This is not a direct support person in the sense of it's the number of hours of direct support service. It's an administrative position to help the house run. So it would be someone who has a lot of needs. And you all did ask for that. And it is, again, for sustainability. We also were able to get supervised overnight supports added to awake overnight supports for self-direction. The 82-hour personal supports restriction is lifted. So for some people who are in community pathways and not in community supports and not community pathways, that would be your way for 24/7 supports without residential services that are in that community supports waiver, are not in the community supports waiver. We still have some concerns about the IFDGS, or individual family directed goods and services cap, but there is a mechanism to go over $5,000 now. So that's a good thing when you use your unallocated funds. Independence Plus is a designation that the New Directions waiver had when it first came out in 2005. The current waiver does not have it. So by asking for it again, their DDA is recommitting to a strong commitment to self-direction. Next slide. So the key thing to remember is that the first 4 hours of support broker service does still come out of dedicated funding for that service. But if you need more than 4 hours, the waiver will allow you to ask for up to 30 hours per month, but it comes out of your unallocated funds, just like mileage would or benefits would. So it's within the rate for the service. One requirement is that this was a compromise with DDA when they were trying to eliminate family working as staff, is that if you have family as paid staff, you were required to have a third-party support broker for conflict, to eliminate conflict of interest, and to help ensure that the participant's voice is heard during the process. Transparency in the review process for case management, including access to Maryland, is coming. That's not actually in the waiver, I don't think. So if I'm missing something, let me know. Budget authority for shared living. So that is a residential service. That's essentially a host family that was not, or is currently not, an option for people who self-direct. It will be an option in the new waiver. Next slide. So I kind of did discuss this a minute ago. The day-to-day administrative support is to help when there's no family member that can do this for free, as in a lot of families in self-direction, as family members age, but the person is getting 24/7 supports and there just needs somebody to help hold the household together. So there isn't a way to do that in the current renewal. Next slide. Patty.
Hi, thanks. So you know that we were successful in advocating for those of you that felt you needed overnight support over the last year, and many of you were able to gain those overnight supports during during this last 6 straight months. So DDA approved those as awake overnight hours, and you had to provide proof of that assessed need with either a behavior plan or a nursing care plan, and you were able to get those overnights restored. In the new waiver, there will be the awake overnight available, but they've also agreed to putting in a service called more supervision. So this could be a person who needs someone there, but maybe does not need someone there performing nursing tasks or behavioral supports on an awake basis. So that, you know, many of you have let us know, and we know from our own life experience, that there are people that simply need someone in the home with them in case of emergency or something that would unexpected would arise. So there will be a service that will be supervision overnight. Again, it's personal support hours. There needs to be an assessed need for it. It has not been determined exactly what we'll have to provide as documentation. It still could be a behavior or nursing plan, because they're going to want something but we're going to lobby for that being a team decision and a team recommendation as a way to satisfy the assessed need. So new service is in the waiver, and you're free to make comments about that and how you would like to see that implemented, or whether you're in favor of that.
That all of the duties of support broker that are included in the CMS definition is now in this waiver renewal. So it's brought the duties back supposedly unequivocally. There's some concerns about some of the wording in the waiver still, but it's the support broker can help with any duty that the participant has at the employer or the person with budget authority over the waiver. Again, as I said before, DDA will fund up to 4 hours out of direct funding for a support broker, but anything over 4 hours would have to be coming out of your unallocated funds that are the result of the rate that you get for the specific services. And again, as I said before, the reason it's mandatory if there is a family as staff or a legal guardian working as staff or a rep payee is to protect the interests of the person and make sure their voice is heard. Not that parents or families would not do that, but just in order to help DDA feel comfortable that that voice is still has an independent advocate working for them. Next slide. Again, over $5,000 is possible. We do have problem with the way it is worded. It will be in our comments. And we don't feel that it really fulfills the intent of the Self-Direction Act, the way it's worded. But it does include anything that's in the definition from the CMS guidelines, which is an expansion of what they were allowing before. Next slide.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our concerns, and the first one is sort of a global. I can see it on both sides, a win and a let's be careful. The waiver this time is not particularly detailed, so the details of how you would get that supervision overnight or some of the other wonderful new services we have are not written in detail in the waiver. So that's where policy becomes crucial, and where our advocacy, all of our advocacy will come into play as policy is developed through DDA. So I just wanted can be a very good thing, because if the waiver is flexible, it's easier to advocate and to get the changes that we may need, changes that nobody knew were necessary at the time. But it also allows for policies to, be not exactly what we want, and where advocacy will be necessary. So the rest of them are more specific. There is a lack of an explicit acknowledgement that self-direction is a one-to-one service and gets the one-to-one rates. There is a concern that some individuals need skilled nursing services, and DDA still is not offering that service. We would like them to remove the words representative payee as staff from the need to have a mandatory support broker. Next slide. We think that smartphones should be included if needed for assistive technology and not available, or the appropriate device is not available from other sources. Again, also internet access should be included. There may be some ways for people to do it outside of DDA through if you get Social Security. So all other options for assistance should be taken advantage of. But if there are funds needed still, internet access should be allowable. Awake Overnight should drop the health risk screening tool, HRST, of 4 and rely on a behavior plan or a nursing plan as documentation to support that need. And there's the words extraordinary circumstances that's in the definition of asking for additional support broker expansion of the hours. And so we would like to remove that because it doesn't seem appropriate. Next slide. We want to see that DDA explicitly acknowledges that community includes a person's home. So community development services should be allowable in a person's home. We want to make sure that budget modifications allow for funds to move across approved employer authority services and to be able to relocate or reallocate funds that come out of unallocated funds. In other words, if you used a lot of unallocated funds to fund your individual family directed goods and services, but now you feel like you don't need that as much, you should be able to reallocate those unallocated funds into another category. Individual family directed goods and services, we are concerned about what criteria is going to be used to approve or disapprove the participant's choice. In the Self-Direction Act of 2022, we didn't really have a DDA approval as long as it was within the guidelines that CMS allows. Next slide. This is another issue that, aside from the waiver, electronic visit verification is coming. We would like to hear about your thoughts and concerns if there are any in the chat. We don't know exactly when, but we do know it's soon. The feeling is going to be January 1. Each FMCS will have its own EVV system. We know that DHA, MDH, Maryland Department of Health said EVV will be required for personal supports and respite. But it does appear to us that MDH is doing more than is required by the federal law and what is required by CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, that it does appear as though people who reside with the participant would be able to be excluded from the EVV requirement. It's not really a visit if you're living there. And we believe also that personal supports in the community would be excluded. We also think that personal supports in general might have an exclusion due to the fact that it isn't really personal care. DDA has expressly said personal care is ancillary to the service of personal supports, which is habilitative. And so this law is really for personal care. So personal supports itself may be able to be excluded. It does also say that the state may choose to expand and have EVV cover a large number of services. And so far, our Maryland MDH has decided to do that. So I think if people are concerned, it's incumbent upon us to advocate for what the group here thinks we want. If there are people out there who are interested, and I'm seeing a little bit in the chat now, we can try to form a group and with SDAN support advocate for whatever complies with the federal law, but no more. So, and lastly, I just wanted to say, if EVV or when EVV comes into our lives, we do need to learn about it and be able to explain it to employees so that we protect their pay. So we all need to learn the system, no matter, it will apply to something. And so we will need to learn the system, and we want to learn that so that people get paid. So that was it on the EVV. Next slide. Patty, I think it's this one, or you can use the next slide too.
Oh, okay. So we kind of went through that pretty quickly. So that leaves us a lot of time for questions. So you can put questions in the chat. Okay.
Next slide.
Yeah, so clearly there's questions about the fingerprinting issue that has come up. We can entertain some of those questions if you want, if you still are unclear. If you have questions about any of the waiver comments that concerns and comments, please put that in the chat and we'll try to go through your questions. If you have any other issues that might be arising out of the FMCS changes that are unsettling to many people at this point, because change is unsettling and there's a lot of things to be worked out. So feel free to put those questions. Again, we're not the authorities. We can give you information that we have been given, and we do continue to meet with DDA executive team monthly, so that we get your questions directly from DDA. We get answers directly from them. We do always want to just not warn you, but just to kind of like make sure you're aware that there's a lot of misinformation, as you well know, that gets communicated from person to person, from CCS to person, from support broker to person, and then on our SDAN Facebook page. So again, we want you to get direct information from DDA and authentic information, so that when we can cut down, if you don't have authentic, true information, don't share what you think, because that's how misinformation happens. So if you do believe that you have something to share with each other that you can pretty much count on being accurate, please share it with each other in our Facebook page and other ways. But if you don't have accurate information, try to cut down on the misinformation sharing. So we can begin to get some questions.
I can answer regarding for paying for the fingerprinting. It's the FMS's responsibility to do it, is apparently in their contract. So that's why you need to submit the reimbursement request to the FMS. And the ARC of Central Chesapeake put that out to all of their clients. I understand the other day, although I did not see it myself. And if you're already registered with one of the other two new ones, you should be able to. Regarding if there's an alternative to EVV, that's part of because of the Sabbath, Esther, that's part of the problem. If you miss that login electronically, it's potentially, you've lost the ability to be paid for that time. So I think you definitely, anybody has that concern, should put that in. It's not, that's one that I certainly wouldn't have thought of, but there are people who miss internet connections. They just don't have them. If you're up in the mountains or you're somewhere, supposedly some of the systems have it so that you can log in, and then when you get internet, it will record it, but that won't fix the Orthodox or the Sabbath observation. EVV, a lot of people have asked what that is electronic visit verification. It's required by a law that the federal government passed several years ago, and there's a nationwide advocacy to get rid of it because it isn't really doing what it was intended to do, which was to stop fraud, and there's very little evidence of fraud in self-direction. So that is one reason why we continue to say don't do it if you don't have to. And we feel strongly that there's very little in this waiver that would require maybe respite, but certainly not personal supports, and certainly not family members that live with the participant. As far as charging people, the FMS fee, which is an administrative service listed in the waiver as administrative service, we 100% agree, but we did ask a national organization as applied self-direction. They said that is a routinely done in other states as well as what's happening in Maryland. I think there's still some issues about how these FMSs are being, some of the things they're being asked to do, but when there's quote unquote working for the participant versus working for the state, that's a different issue. And that's as many as questions as I saw that I could try to answer quickly. Does anybody else in the group see?
There was a question, a more basic one about a support broker and what they do. And there are a couple of questions about what they might be allowed to do in the way of helping sign timesheets in the future.
They continue to put in the waiver renewal that support brokers are not allowed to authorize payment of timesheets or vendor payments. We continue to comment that that should be something they are allowed to do with authorized by the participant, with the exception of their own timesheet. Nobody should be able to sign their own timesheet or payment authorization. So that's a comment SDAN's been making for 6.5 years. So we will continue to make that comment. And we encourage you all to do the same thing. But right now, no, we cannot, support brokers cannot sign timesheets.
They can review and hopefully have the participant sign with review of the support broker. So that's a possible way to.
Right, and you may, depending on the system of the FMCS, hopefully there will be a way for the support broker to review it before they're submitted for final payment, or that would have to be something that the participant and their support broker work out, just to make sure that hours are coded in the right category and things like that, which is some of the things that a lot of participants ask support brokers to do.
Carol, can you define a family member?
According to the waiver, a family member is a parent, a sibling, parent, adoptive, foster, that kind of thing, siblings, steps, siblings, half siblings. And now they're adding child. That hasn't been something that's so much in the DDA world, but in other services like aging and things, that is child is a relative.
There's a couple more questions about the fingerprinting, and I have not seen, I've seen what ARC has put through about fingerprinting. I know they have a particular, I don't know what a participant number, a number that you would use when you go to get your fingerprints, so that the results of the print go to that particular FMS. I'm assuming that the other two FMCSs also have their own accounts. I am also not entirely sure if you can use any fingerprinting. I know that it's a CJIS system, but I don't know that you can go to anywhere that uses that, or you need to go to, I think there's a walk-in place in Reisterstown Road Plaza, I think. And then I think the MVAs around the state
You on your way home already?
do that. So that's what I've seen so far, but I do have the question in if there are other places that you can go to get the fingerprinting done and still get reimbursement from the FMCS. There's some other interest, Carol, maybe back to you, about individual family directed goods and services and how somebody would determine what things might be available. I guess refer them maybe to the technical guidance from CMS, or is there another source?
There is no explicit list of what is allowed. It's generally that is from CMS's point of view, things that help with community integration, or but in DDAs, DDA does have a list, and dental services are there, nutritional services are there. It cannot be a therapy. So if you have a music class, it's an activity or a class, not music therapy. It's not art therapy, it's an art class. So those are those are that word therapy cannot be in anything, or it will be considered the wrong category. But a lot of things are getting through. I have DGS now. Gym memberships have in the past, like I said, dental services, music lessons, music groups, and the horseback riding used to be called therapy. Now it's just horseback riding. So you try it. You look at the definitions in the waiver and in the CMS guidelines and use the words right out of that to justify any activity that you want to do if you've got money for it.
I wanted to address maybe the charges for the FMCS, and if you don't have funds in your budget, if your plan was one of the many that was due July or your date is July 1st, then you would not have had access to the July 1st rate increases, and you can contact your support broker, your CCS, and go back to have those new rates applied to your budget. That, in our experience so far, that should give you the funds necessary to pay the FMCS. There was another question about support brokers. So there's DDA will continue to pay up to the 4 hours of support brokerage that will be added to your budget. If you are a participant that wants or requires additional support broker hours, that would come out of the unallocated fund pot. So I hope that answers some of those questions. Yes, so the individual employee, it seems as though the individual employee does have to come out of pocket for the fingerprinting, at least at the moment. But the FMCS will be reimbursing that. And I am waiting to hear what that process might be. Hopefully, each FMS will send out a note to everybody saying what the process is.
I'm looking at explain more about the support broker, and I think you asked me that, Alicia. I'm not sure I answered it the way this question is.
Yeah.
The support broker, unless you have family as staff or a legal guardian as staff, and the way the new waiver is going to be read, a rep payee as staff, you don't need a support broker, but I personally strongly recommend that you have one, because it's an expert in self-direction that can help you get the initial services that you need and make sure that your plan is worded in a way that meets the ability to show the needs that you have, and also has experts on budgeting and that kind of thing. So it's optional, but it really is something that can be a benefit to you. They're assisting you do all the duties of being self-directing. You are an employer of record. You're the employer of all your employees. You have to follow employment laws. The FMS will help you with that, but so will the support broker, and they will help keep your budget on track.
Here's a question. I guess people are pretty concerned about how timesheets will get signed. And I do believe they're now going to be mostly digital. They're going to be mostly online and digital. And it will be more of a simple approval. Hoping that most of the participants will be able to do that with support. And those that I guess would need extraordinary support from either a family member or a support broker, and that would be noted on a participant agreement, who would be the person supporting them.
Someone noted that they did get permission as a support broker to sign timesheets I would say that DDA probably did miss that. That was one of the questions. We feel that that should be something that could be explicitly delegated to a support broker to do. It should be the participant's decision, not DDA's. But it continues to be in the waiver that we're not allowed, that support brokers are not allowed to do that.
People do use stamps, custom signature stamps or electronic signatures. So that's a possibility. Somebody else asked about support brokers optional, and they will remain optional unless you have family working as well. Right now, the way the waivers, the waiver renewal states it is legal guardian, family as staff, or rep payee or as staff. You will need to have a support broker. You can have the minimum number of hours, but it will be mandatory if you have those categories of people working for you when the new waiver goes into effect. It is DDA's intention to turn in the waiver draft, I believe, by January 1st, with the idea that it would go into effect July 1st of 2023. Somebody asked what the rep payee has to do with it, and I'm going to just out on a limb here. In my opinion, it has nothing to do with it. I don't know where that came from. One of our comments is to remove that.
And
It doesn't mean that a rep payee can't be staff. All it said in there was if you are a rep payee, that you would need a support broker. But for what reason, I can't fathom.
If the rep payee was a family member, a parent, a sibling, a child, then yeah, you would need a support broker. But if you have a rep payee that's, I don't know who else could be a rep payee, your uncle, we don't get it. They're two completely separate entities. As far as there is no minimum number of support broker hours, so somebody asked about if you do have family as staff, what's the minimum number? That's a good question, because it's kind of like you could have a support broker and not ask them to do anything. That would actually be oversight. So they're just being on their team and having no access to anything could be a problem. So just they try what you want them to do. And if the DDA doesn't question your participant agreement, it should go through with whatever number of hours you put on it.
I think the intention is to have a support broker be there to represent the participant and to be a active member of the team. So one assumed for team meetings and for changes in the PCP or budgeting, and you might want to include them in the team meeting that you would have to discuss any changes to your plan or changes to your budget. But other than that, I don't think we contemplated any other mandatory activities. There was somebody asked if overtime for family of staff is ending on September 30th. It is my understanding from reading it that it is. But you can, in the PowerPoint, which is in the chat now twice, you can hit the link and read for yourself. It is my understanding that, yes, in fact, it does. And there is a way to have family as staff do overtime with DDA approval. I don't know how easy that is to get. Somebody else was asking about the day-to-day administrator and would they do paperwork like vendor payments. That's typically something a support broker handles.
The one thing about that position is technically, since you can go up to 30 hours a month with a support broker, technically you could combine and ask the support broker to take over some of those duties, or that could be up to the support broker to see that those duties are done either by some other employee or whatever. But there is some kind of, not overlap, but there could be an overlap, and you could put it in a different position or in the support broker position or some combination that works for you. You have multiple options on where to do that. But they wouldn't be taking over roles that would generally be the support broker. But again, you get to choose what those roles are for both of those people. Oh, somebody asked about MedSource. I've been communicating with Jay Valent this morning. He's looking into this because December 1st doesn't match up with when MedSource people are going to switch over to their new FMCS if they chose January 1st. So that's a gap that MedSource is not under contract as an FMCS, therefore they are not required to do fingerprinting. So if you've picked another agency, then probably need to, it's something that SDAN will check into, but you could also check with the ARC or whoever else you're second. It looks like you said, this person said the ARC.
Patty, did you want to answer something?
Sure. Somebody had a question about the ARC of Central Chesapeake having problems issuing clearance for staff and processing budgets for new participants, and asking how they could address that. We are in a very tumultuous time right now. This big FMCS change is huge, along with the waiver renewals. And so the big things are going on. The ARC of Central Chesapeake has been doing this FMS in self-direction since the beginning, 17 years ago when we started, and they have stood by SDAN and advocated with us and have done a fabulous job with few glitches here and there over the 17 years. Currently, they are going through a massive transition to become the organization that can meet this need of the FMCS contract. So yes, they are having some difficulty being at peak performance right now. I personally would ask that we give them a bit of grace and work with them directly to solve your problems rather than taking to a public forum and bashing them as a company. They have advocated for what we have currently in self-direction and made so many things happen for us, as did MedSource. And so they are going through a massive transition right now. And yes, things are chaotic and they are falling short in some areas. Please work with them directly. There's nothing SDAN can do to help them build their internal processes to better process onboarding folks. They know the issue and they're working on it. So if we could all just work with them individually and help them and support them as they have supported us for all these years.
Thanks, Patty. We did advocate, I guess, with ARC and the other FMCSs to extend the fingerprinting deadline from October 1st to, we didn't pick December 1, DDA did, but at least we were able to get that requirement pushed off into a time period where people can actually get it done. So I see there's some interest in EVV advocacy. I've taken down a few names if you are interested in advocating to change Maryland's choice of what they are choosing to do. Please either write it in the chat or email us at info@marylandsds.org. I see 2 hands are up, but if you can write things in the chat, it works so much better for this group, a group of this size. It's really impossible to let everybody talk. So ladies, if it's possible, if you could just write in the chat, we'll try to answer your questions.
Someone asked how they can help us advocate, and submitting your own comments or at least dittoing ours, although making it somehow personal would be better. Even if you say, highlight the things that you agree with in our comments. There was something else. I'm trying to go through the chat and I'm having a hard time keeping up.
Yes. There was one question that came through. If you are onboarding somebody right now, do you need to get the fingerprints right now, or do you have till December 1st? Does anybody know the answer to that?
October 1.
No, that is not that's not, that is,
Anybody who's signed up as a new employee before October 1 doesn't need fingerprinting. Anybody after October 1. That's what Tracy told me.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's December 1st.
We had a staff member who was told, I don't know by whom, that she needed to get it done by October 1. She came on board in the summer.
No,
Yeah,
that
that's
is
not true.
correct.
Can we ask, hold on a sec, can we ask everybody to mute because we can't go down the path of everyone speaking,
Right.
unfortunately.
So-
Put your comments in the chat and we have to go back. Alicia can reiterate the memo that came from DDA. Because that is the
Yeah.
final word. The memo that came out from DDA
Right.
regarding fingerprinting
The
is
memo that came from DDA explicitly says we have until December 1st. Now the tweak to the question was, if you are onboarding someone now, do they also have till December 1st? And I don't know if there's anybody from any of the FMCSs who can answer that from their perspective. If so, raise your hand. But I will ask that question specifically and hope that I the way the memo is worded, everybody has till December 1st. That's my interpretation, but it's a good question and I'm not confident of that particular answer. ARC was requiring. EVV is not starting as of October 1st. I have not yet seen any memos from MDH or DDA on the start date. My thinking is it's going to be January 1, but we have not yet heard for certain about that. Somebody said they're having trouble getting a code for fingerprinting, and I don't think there's a code. I understand that each FMCS has a sort of like a vendor number, an account with the CGIS people, so that when a person goes in and gets their fingerprint, they get the report. So it's important to have that number, I think, so that the report goes to the correct FMCS.
someone asked what habilitative is. Habilitative means services that help someone live their life in the community, not direct personal care. Personal care, like helping with activities of daily living and incidental activities of daily living, are considered personal care. Personal supports, as defined in our waiver, are things that help them maintain, improve independent living skills and be involved in their community. So somebody put in the chat that all vendors and support brokers have to be fingerprinted. Kim, is that what you heard?
Yeah, I actually sent you guys, and you may not have seen it yet. I sent you guys an email that I got from Christy Colbreth.
Kim, excuse me, Kim, can you introduce yourself?
Oh, hi, I'm Kim. I am part of the Support Broker Cafe and the group. So we actually reached out to DDA and asked them in regards to the support broker aspect, as well as the employee for the fingerprinting. And the response that we got back was both vendors and employees who provide services to our population both have to have fingerprints done.
So it's just support brokers, or it's like
No,
nurses,
all vendors, all vendors.
nurses, behavior specialists.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, you forwarded that to us? Yeah, thank
Yep.
you. All right, let me see what other gems there are.
There were a few people, I have 6 people so far who are interested in working together on an EVV advocacy group. So I will, I think, get the email addresses, your email addresses from Liz, and kind of put together a small group with, and SDAN's happy to support it. We'll see where this group can take it. If you're interested, and I didn't get your name, there's 6 of you. If you didn't put it in the chat, then please let me know. I got another one.
Here's a question that I'm going to read. I am the rent payee for my daughter. I do not get paid. Do I need to have myself listed as an employee? No, you don't work for your daughter under DDA, then this isn't, nothing that we're talking about is applying to you. Correct? Everybody else? It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, because
But, somebody else wrote, they're a mother of a participant, and do they need to be fingerprinted? And the answer is yes. If you are staff, no matter what other designations you might have, you will need to be fingerprinted. At least according to the most recent memo.
So this is Patty again. So many questions about fingerprinting and about EVV. We want to really bring back to you the requests that we have specifically that you make your comments known to DDA about the waiver. Remember, the waiver renewal comes up every 5 years. So this is whatever comes out in this waiver that's effective July 1 of 2023 will affect your life for the next 5 years. So I know that fingerprinting is the hot topic right now because you're being required to do something, but that is something in the here and now. And once it's done, it's done. You know, this waiver renewal is important. And if you can take a look at the proposed waiver comments that we have in the PowerPoint, there was a link to that, or look at the SDAN comments when we mail them out to you, or on the website. This is the here and now. Get your comments to DDA about your concerns about what's in the waiver. You might, when you look at the proposed waiver, you might want to zero in on Appendix C. That's where all the services are listed. There are multiple appendixes in there about how they're going to implement the federal waiver. Appendix C is where you will find the services that are probably of most interest to you. And if you look, make some comments and send them to the email that we had posted in the PowerPoint. And someone probably put it in the chat, hopefully, the email where you send your comments. If you spend all your time focused on fingerprinting, you're going to miss this window of opportunity. It ends midnight on October 6th. You don't get to give comments after that. The waiver will be submitted. So there's been a 30-day window to give comments, and it's drawing to a close. So if you could put your attention and time and energy into comments right now, that would really help SDAN, and in fact help you all over the next 5 years. Because again, we can always try to advocate for change during those 5 years, but it won't be through the waiver. It'll probably be through policy changes.
Right. So there's been a couple of questions about where do you get a support broker? And I think we just posted a link to the website that DDA has of support brokers. You can also go on our Facebook page and, tell where in general you're located and ask for recommendations for that. I just want to kind of highlight something Patty just said. We will be sending out our comments, hopefully October 4th. I mean, we're squeaking in at the end, but there's just a lot to go through. So we will send that to everyone. And we ask that you make your own comments, review it, pick things that are important to you, yay or nay, of course, and make your thoughts known. Individually, we have a lot more power than if we sent it saying, this is SDAN's comments and included the 111 people that were here today. So if 111 people actually write, it has much more impact than if we just say, and of course, don't want to speak for you individually, but would love for you to, advocate, because as Patty said, this waiver is in effect for the next, 5 years.
Someone asked when the deadline is, if you are a paid family member, you're working in as family as staff. This is part of the waiver renewal. It won't be effective until
Next July.
July 1st, 2023.
All right. I think we're kind of closing in on the end. Yep. And thank you to everyone who said thank you to us. Very much appreciated. We've spent a lot of time working on this, the comments on the waiver renewal, and we're pretty excited about some of the new opportunities that we have because of the self-directed bill. So we appreciate your support. Patty?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I've been seeing some questions, and I've certainly seen them on the Facebook page about the support broker requirement for family and staff. Now, some of you know my background, and I've worked for over 200 people in self-direction since in the 17 years, and I currently work for 36 people. I have to tell you that the value that a support broker can bring to your team, it can't be understated. So I understand family members saying, why do I need to do this? I don't want one. I don't need one. I'm just challenging to open your mind a bit. You may really, really benefit. There'll be another person in it with you. There's a lot to do, and this is a lot of responsibility. And all of the people I've worked for all these years, they often have a fabulous experience with a support broker on their team. So before you discount it or automatically think it's a negative thing, interview some support brokers and see, who you might want to have as a part of your team.
So very true. All right. Is there?
Some of you may not have seen that in the chat. Tracy from the ARC told someone that they're going to have meetings. So like Alicia said, the date changed so fast after the ARC sent out their email, because the DDA then sent out their email, changing it from October 1st to December 1st, mainly because they got a lot of calls from people like you, which is good. And that's how change comes about. So there's a lot of unanswered questions, like if you have it under CFC, can that fingerprint work? And if you and Patty, somebody asked if how recently would your fingerprints work as part of your license? So there's kind of the DDA threw stuff up against the wall, and now we're all trying to sort it out. So it'll get sorted out. So like Alicia said, or Patty said, focus on the waiver comments right now, and then we'll deal with that problem after October 6th.
Definitely. So look for an email from us with our comments, and feel free. I think, Liz, we put the link to the waiver renewal. It's a long document. It's 400 and some odd pages, right, Carol? The whole waiver renewal thing.
Appendix C is 400 and some
Okay.
pages.
So it's
There
a very,
are,
very
like,
long
seven-
document, but you should be
7
able.
appendixes. Yeah.
Yeah, I put it in the chat. So I put a link to the DDA page with all the appendices, and I put PDFs of just the appendix for services and the appendix for self-direction.
Thank you. So if anybody wants to get into the weeds with Carol, feel free to dive into that incredible document. It is, it's kind of the guidebook for the next 5 years. So it's really important, as are your feedback and your comments, to help make it as best we can.
And I am working as fast as I can to get something out to you guys. So hopefully it'll be out before October 4th. I know that doesn't give you a lot of time, but hopefully it will also be in a format that you can easily follow, which it is not right now. I can't even follow my comment.
But I mean, I think our comments will probably be much more handleable in the order of, 10 to 20 pages, not 700 or whatever. So,
All right.
anybody else? Well, please feel free to email us. Could you put up that last slide again?
Sure,
Liz?
I'll try.
Okay. Please feel free to email us or go to our website for the recording of this. I just wanted to put it up in case somebody wanted the email address. So there's the waiver comments address. Our email address in the one of the boxes to the right, info@marylandsds.org. Please join our mailing list if you're not on, so you get the comments. Please donate so that we can continue to do this work. Please volunteer, and I will thank you to the people who did today. Feel free to do your own questions, or I see Carol wrote in here, if you have questions about the waiver comments or your own comments, you may email her personally at carol@custerllc.com. So be in touch with us one way or another, Facebook page, Facebook group. If you're going to join our Facebook group, there are questions you have to answer to get in. So just make sure you do that. And that's it, I think. Patty, unless you have anything else to close with.
I don't. Thanks for
Okay.
everybody for taking your time.
Yes.
I have one thing for any support broker on this group. I would encourage you to get in touch with Kim and join the Support Broker Cafe group. Support broker issues as professionals are different than SDANs, and that group would be the one to kind of work together as professionals on those issues. And Kim, if you want to put your email or whatever in there is going to be a website soon for support brokers.
Always good to have additional advocacy groups advocating for our participants. So, thanks, everyone. Thanks, Kim.
Bye.